This is the artificial intelligence voice of Dr. Rangan Chatterjee narrating this pod-slice summary of the Feel Better, Live More podcast. Dr. Rangan Chatterjee is in conversation with David Bidler. They discuss the global mental health crisis, especially focusing on the rise of anxiety and depression in children and adolescents. David reveals concern regarding our current understanding of these issues, asserting that using the term mental health problem could be misleading and potentially detrimental. According to him, these disorders may rather be seen as natural physiological responses to an unhealthy environment and lifestyle. The guest asserts that current approaches are focused on treating symptoms instead of addressing the root cause, which lies within individual physiology. Bidler emphasizes the role of sleep, exercise, nutrition, and meeting metabolic needs in maintaining mental wellness. He compares anxiety and depression to an alarm system of the human body that signals the need for lifestyle modifications. This, he suggests, creates an opportunity to build a proactive skill set to manage these natural bodily responses, bearing the potential to transform our conversations about mental health. The problematic aspect of diagnosing these issues as disorders is addressed. He states that labeling can not only disempower individuals, but also confuse them, especially if these disorders are indeed natural bodily responses to unhealthy environments. Avoiding words like disorder and understanding the natural order of the body seems to be crucial in helping them take control of their mental well-being. Bidler then dives into the concept of anxiety. He mentions that most people cannot define this loosely used term, which has now become heavily culturally loaded. He suggests experiencing anxiety proactively and training oneself towards managing it effectively. As an example, he showcases a practical exercise that he utilizes with students where they're exposed to anxiety in the form of increased heart rate and feeling of uneasiness induced by an exercise bike. Breathing exercises in a highly sensory stimulating environment. On being asked to reflect upon the experience, the students are led to the realization that what they categorized as anxiety is, in fact, a physical response of their body to certain stimuli. The experiment aims at debunking the notion of anxiety as a disorder and associating the physiological phenomenon from mental processes like worry. The guest believes in the power of such experiential learning and employs it as a tool for youth to explore their physiology with agency. In this portion of Dr. Rangan Chatterjee's conversation with David Bidler, they continue with their in-depth analysis of mental health matters and the effectiveness of dealing with them physiologically. Drawing upon a significant life event, Bidler explains how he instinctively managed physiological responses for survival when held at gunpoint at 15. As humans, we are naturally equipped with these state control skills. However, the constant stress and anxiety of today's world often disconnect us from our instinctual abilities. It's important to differentiate between our biological response to acute stress, life or death situations, and chronic stress, which stems from an unending barrage of stimuli, including smartphones, social media, and an overwhelming variety of distractions that can lead to feelings of anxiety and overwhelm. Contrary to traditional theories, Bidler argues that humans are not necessarily equipped to handle chronic stress, but they are incredibly resilient when it comes to acute stress. Modern lifestyle habits such as excessive consumption of caffeine and lack of sleep contribute to our bodies not being able to effectively manage this constant stream of noise. Both children and adults often lack an educational framework to understand the impacts of these factors on their physiology. Bidler goes in depth on his unique campus, where he applies his theories in a practical setting. Unlike a regular gym, this learning-focused space provides a safe environment where adults and adolescents can understand their body, health, and fitness in a community setting. Everything here is rooted in principles, and the focus is on learning rather than just doing. Bidler firmly believes that health is about the brain first, which brings the conversation back to his belief that addressing mental health issues should be a matter of understanding our physiology better instead of just trying to treat the symptoms. Through the structure and methodology in place at his campus, Bidler aims to provide his clients, both young and old, with empowering knowledge and tools to take control of their physiology under stress. He elaborates on state control skills to realistically manage situations inducing mental stress and anxiety, using physiological responses, a practical manifestation of his belief in addressing so-called mental disorders at the root by learning to manage their internal states. Bidler promotes newfound understanding of mental wellness, reshaping the narrative on mental health towards a proactive physiological perspective. David Bidler, in conversation with Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, articulates on the significant role of understanding one's physiology better in managing stress and anxiety. He uses unique and engaging teaching methods to help his students at his campus experience and control anxiety. The game is about discomfort because, as Bidler states, it's necessary for adaptation. He trains students to enter challenging environments and come out from them skillfully. Instead of feeling controlled, they learn to self-control. He gives the example of a training program where a student experiences anxiety by increasing their heart rate through physical activity. But then they're also equipped with tools that help them bring the heart rate back to normal, learning how to control their body's anxiety response. Bidler uses an interesting technique of reframing anxiety as a natural physiological response of the body for the sake of preparedness, shifting the focus from treating symptoms to understanding and managing physical reactions. He uses exercise as a tool because it raises heart rate, creating sensations similar to anxiety. Moreover, these exercises inculcate breathing techniques to manage the stress response better. The central part of Bidler's teaching method also involves explaining how breathing works and how it affects the body's anxiety response. More intriguingly, Bidler simplifies the connection between breathing and the heart rate and oxygen levels in the body. For example, students are asked to run across the room without breathing, causing an obvious rise in heart rate due to increased physical activity. But the oxygen levels in the blood remain the same. This unique method equips students to understand the physical manifestations of anxiety and how to control them, enhancing their ability to cope with stressors effectively, resulting in better physical and mental health. Bidler's approach to managing stress and anxiety goes beyond only educating about physiological responses. It also introduces a discernment that not exercising is a depressant. The framework of his teaching focuses on making students feel active, engaged, powerful, and taking full control of their physiological state. Every aspect of one's life, including breathing, walking, running, sleeping, and nutrition, is considered a skill that can be improved. This approach takes students on a physical learning journey while empowering them to build resilience and manage anxiety more effectively. In this part of the discussion, David Bidler expounds on the transformative power of his teaching methods for students. According to him, the ultimate goal of learning about the human physiology goes beyond just managing stress and anxiety. It progresses towards self-empowerment and achieving individual goals. He employs an unusual approach to help students understand the power of their own bodies. For instance, they are introduced to the cold plunge and sauna to experience immediate physical responses. The intention isn't to make them feel uncomfortable, but to showcase scientific principles at work. To illustrate this, Bidler explains how a stimulant drug like Adderall impacts neurochemicals exactly the same way the ice bath does. However, in his framework, students have the ability to naturally access this state for free, which leads to a personal understanding. The discussions pivot to other engaging, hands-on experiments. Students learn a simple breathing technique known popularly as a physiological side, brought to fame by Dr. Andrew Huberman. This technique effectively lowers heart rates, not just in theory, but in real-time observations with heart rate monitors. Students experience the power of mastering their own bodies and owning their physiological responses. On the topic of blood pressure, both Dr. Chatterjee and Bidler agree that it is a misunderstood area. They argue for the normalization of physiological effects of exhaustion rather than treating the symptoms with medication. As an alternative, they propose addressing the root cause by making lifestyle changes and implementing learned techniques, such as the physiological sigh. Bidler places a high emphasis on the educational component of health, shedding light on issues such as insufficient sleep among young people and its link to mental health. His stance firmly advocates that analysis and response towards these problems need to be evolved from a 20th century framework to effectively address the 21st century health crisis. In conclusion, Bidler's approach banks on educating young people on managing stress, anxiety, and depression, and understanding the physical prerequisites of mental health. His aim is to solve this problem now, to foresee a healthier community in the future. And in his own words, if we do solve it now because we can, what is the healthier community? This thought-provoking question reinforces the urgency and need for investing in educating young people about health and physiology. The dialogue broadens to include the critical need for reshaping the educational system of the future. Bidler strongly opposes cultural labels that categorize students into jocks and brains, and aims to provide an educational infrastructure rooted in health education, which encourages students of all inclinations. He believes that this allows the transformation of students' physical health, sleep patterns, moods, and the symptoms of many common issues. Bidler emphasizes the importance of honest conversations about distinguishing psychiatric disorders from natural physiological responses. This requires a massive shift from medication to prioritizing physiology-based education. So then responding to a question about the success of therapeutic interventions like cognitive behavioral therapy and other techniques, Bidler agrees, but insists on raising the bar higher. He advocates fulfilling the foundational prerequisites first, including nutrition, hydration, sleep, movement, stress management, and then assessing the need for additional help. Taking sleep as an example, Bidler refers to a 1960s study about REM sleep deprivation leading to signs of psychosis and hallucination in adolescents. He connects the tendency to pathologize such responses to habits like insufficient sleep to the escalating drug crisis amongst young people. With a significant focus on physical health education, Bidler urges parents and educators to teach children about breathing. He considers it as the pathway and the starting point in understanding physiology. With increased breath awareness and regulation, he believes one can further advance into aspects such as sleep, exercise, technology, and nutrition. In the larger picture, Bidler throws light on the importance of evolving the educational system. He points out the need for neuroscience, infused learning methodologies, stress on muscle training, and restructured course hours. Creating this balance, he claims, will keep workaholism at bay and instill a healthier work-life integration amongst young individuals. Lastly, Bidler signifies the impact of community and relationships, encouraging everyone to probe beyond the physiological and look into purpose-driven goals, aspirations, and social connections. These, he insists, are just as essential to our health as our physiological needs. The discussion evolves further, painting a picture of the transformative power of embodying physiological principles for children and adults alike. Bidler encourages us to question established norms that contradict our biological needs, such as the traditional classroom setup, which encourages prolonged periods of sitting. Addressing this and other such issues, he promotes the active incorporation of health into education by reshaping environments to better suit physiological needs. Bidler's approach, however, goes deeper than nudging educators to change the physical setting of classrooms. He challenges them to disrupt existing paradigms and present the new as exciting. This disruption not only prompts actions such as encouraging standing and moving, but also reinforces the concept of learning from different perspectives. Furthermore, Bidler urges educators and parents alike to question if their surroundings support health. He suggests that if the answer is no, it becomes their responsibility to spearhead change and, if necessary, to create new and healthier environments. Detailing his own disruptive experiences, Bidler shares how his institution frequently evolves, constantly seeking ways to improve its physical and educational infrastructure. He emphasizes the free yet substantial physiological benefits of freely moving, standing, and incorporating simple exercises into students' routines. Drawing further on these principles, Bidler uses the example of punishments that include preventing movement or exposure to natural light, critiquing them as detrimental to the learning process. He emphasizes that such actions undermine the very neurology and neuroscience of learning, turning the focus of education to obedience instead. Conveying his intent of constructing new learning environments, Bidler proposes a radical shift from obedience-oriented schooling to an academic culture that fosters inquisitive, innovative, and passionate leaders. His approach involves the reinstatement of brain health requisites into the learning process, posing an appealing challenge to educators. Adding to this, he strongly advocates for a global dialogue on the skills children require to thrive in the 21st century, and calls for the realignment of educational environments with the health needs of students and teachers. Diving into the transformative effect of his physiology-infused approach, Bidler elaborates on the understanding and control students gain over their physiological and emotional responses. This mastery not only empowers them, but also has profoundly positive effects on their well-being and academic performance. His approach harnesses an array of techniques, from simple exercises to creative elements like cold plunge saunas and biking. This power to produce and reduce anxiety, as he articulates, propels children from being mere passengers to active drivers of their own mental and physiological states. In this insightful and education-filled conversation between Dr. Rangan Chatterjee and David Bidler, they delve into the significant impact of channeling physiological aspects for psychological well-being. Bidler, stressing on non-negotiable physical prerequisites for mental health, indicates that physiology can be measured and manipulated in recognizable, actionable ways, contrasting the opaque methods we use to describe and diagnose mental health issues today. To illustrate, Bidler recounts the transformation of a 14-year-old girl who'd been suffering from panic attacks while playing soccer. Analyzing her situation, he observed 3 physical aspects they could improve her acclimatization: warming up the lungs and tolerance to carbon dioxide. With a combination of sauna sessions, patterned heart rate rising exercises, and breath hold training, Bidler was able to help this girl overcome her anxiety-induced panic attacks. He explains that understanding and managing physiology provides not only immediate relief, but also long-term skills for anxiety management. By reframing anxiety-inducing situations into volitional challenges, he enhances the individual's skill set to overcome acute and chronic anxiety. Then Bidler throws light on the often overlooked impact of caffeine, especially on young people. He advocates for educating adolescents about the science of caffeine and its impact on sleep and the nervous system. He reveals that by addressing the caffeine intake of the previously mentioned teen, her chronic anxiety issues were majorly relieved, thus highlighting the significance of understanding and dealing with our physiology. In a wider perspective, this physiology-integrated approach is effective not only in addressing so-called mental health disorders, but also in preventing them altogether. Chatterjee strongly emphasizes the importance of focusing on creating health instead of merely diagnosing and treating disease. By addressing an individual's upstream physiology, numerous downstream problems can be preemptively tackled. Equally important, Bidler sheds light on a drawback of our current medical practice: the prescribing of addictive medications like benzodiazepines without acquiring health data and understanding the underlying physiology. He warns against such practices and emphasizes the importance of prioritizing basic physiological assessment before jumping to behavior analysis for diagnosis, thereby advocating for addressing physiology first before engaging in psychiatric interventions. Overall, these discussions signal a pressing call for a radical shift in our understanding of mental health and the methods we use to address it. It emphasizes prioritizing physiological health as the tangible and actionable first line of defense against many of today's widespread mental health issues. To this continued conversation between Dr. Rangan Chatterjee and David Bidler, the theme of physiological influence on well-being continues to hold strong. This segment delves into the significance of public health, the understanding of personal physiology, and the importance of communication and trust in health management. Bidler discusses his particular focus on teenagers' health, which he sees as a tremendous area of potential and concern. He argues that we are currently witnessing an epidemic of declining mental health among our future problem solvers. By focusing on improving the health of these young individuals, we can leverage their potential and better secure society's future. Bidler and Dr. Chatterjee expressed concern over the commonality of physical ailments like knee and back issues, exacerbated by factors like inappropriate foot orientation during exercise. Bidler gives examples of how a physical trainer might demonstrate care for their client's individual physiology and thereby solidify trust between them. This trust can then be used as a foundation for deeper work be it physical or psychological. Emphasizing the importance of self-perception and effective treatment, Bidler suggests exercises that help clients recognize how different actions affect their body. He asserts that this increased self-awareness will help individuals acknowledge and understand their physical well-being, subsequently improving their mental health. Trust and engagement in the process, according to Bidler, are crucial aspects in the trainer-client relationship. He points out that unless a person is engaged with the process and can feel a difference with themselves, they often stop when encountering obstacles. Expanding on the physiology-focused discussion, Bidler highlights the role of dopamine motivating us to do things. He notes the difference in dopamine increase when an action is voluntary versus coerced, pointing to the importance of fostering enthusiasm in health management practices. The fundamental goal, he suggests, is to create environments where people feel motivated and excited to participate, whether in a workout or an educational setting. In summary, this part of the conversation lays stress on the immediate need for a mental and physical health revolution centered around primary physiological assessment, general understanding, and an environment promoting enthusiasm and satisfaction. It underlines the importance of mutual trust between coaches and clients and suggests that every health disorder, be it physical or psychological, needs to be addressed with an informed, engaging, and enthusiastic approach. David Bidler continues to share the impact of his nonprofit organization, Physiology First, which aims to improve mental and physical wellness through understanding and influencing our individual physiology. Bidler reveals his organization's focus on empowering teenagers to understand their physical health, as well as the significance of blending modern physical health regimes with education, all available worldwide through online courses. The online courses, Bidler says, assemble leaders from education, health, physical therapy, and traditional mental health sectors to train them in basic physiological assessments, which can then be executed beneficially in their communities. Bidler highlights the crucial role that teens play in reshaping the future of public health. He encourages young people to learn more about their physiology and the health community by engaging with trained coaches. He suggests that this engagement can lead to a collaborative environment, promoting the development of vibrant health communities with weekly workouts, breath education classes, and deep learning opportunities, all guided by feedback from these insightful youngsters. Bidler underscores the essential human need for physical community and connection in this increasingly digital. As fitness infrastructures continue to close and move online, one of the valuable tasks for 21st century health leaders, he suggests, is to restore and maintain these physical community spaces for collective human interaction. The conversation moves on to the educator's role. Bidler identifies 4 practical suggestions for those in the education system looking to prioritize student health through physiology. First, he recommends providing staff with the skills to model state regulation and optimal mental and physical health. Secondly, he suggests thoughtful disruption as a way to recapture student engagement. Making health a priority within the institution is Bidler's third point. Finally, he advises an educational curriculum deeply rooted in physiological orientation, teaching students how to navigate their nervous system effectively in our complex modern world. As Dr. Chatterjee compliments Bidler's work, he asserts the potential of such methods to transform the next generation's education and health. This approach uses modern scientific knowledge to understand and influence individual physiology, ultimately improving the overall fitness of society, particularly among the young generation who will shape our future.